Pearl Harbor was on a Sunday afternoon. Monday morning, we went from River Falls to Minneapolis and St. Paul to enlist in the service. And of course, the lines were very long for the Army and the Navy and everything, and we found a short line. We went in there, and that was the U.S. Marines. So that's how it happened that we joined the Marines. They had the shortest line waiting for them.
And these were some people, your buddies from college, right? You
Oh,
all
yes.
piled into a car.
Yeah,
Tell
right.
us about
Oh,
that.
yeah. All my friends from college, yeah. We jumped in about 3-4 cars and took off. Practically emptied out River Falls University. Yeah, the guys just took off. That's all to volunteer for the service. They sent us back to school.
Okay.
Yeah, they sent us back to school, and after we finished school, then they took us into boot camp. Yeah, boot camp at Parris Island.
Is that pretty tough?
Oh, yeah, that was tough. We always said, let's go to war. War will be easier than boot camp.
So after boot camp, what happened? Were you sent?
Well, then there were a group of us selected to go to officers training class. And from boot camp, we went directly to Quantico, Virginia for officers training. And when we finished there, we came out as second lieutenants. During our stay at Quantico, Virginia, in officers training class, they put us through a lot of tests, physical, written tests, written exams and everything. And a lot of it was scientific and mathematical. So then there were 2 or 3 of us out of that group. They sent us then to Harvard University to study electronics. And that was the beginning of electronics. So we went to Harvard University for 4.5 months, and then we finished Harvard, and that was the study of radio and radar. Radar just became in its infancy at that time. And we finished there, and then they sent us to MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, for another 5 months of schooling. Yes, then we finished there. Then we waited orders to go overseas.
So that's what you did? You were a radar guy?
Yes, radio, radar. I spent all my time in the Marines in communications then. And then after we finished MIT, then we had about 2 months of waiting time, and then we got our orders then to report for active duty overseas. And when we got overseas, we joined a fighter squadron. So I was assigned to Fighter Squadron VMF 113. They flew the Corsair, F4U Corsair. And the Corsair, you probably recall, it's inverted gull wing, 1-seater fighter plane. Yes.
And where were you stationed? Where were you deployed?
We started out at the island of Kwajalein in the Marshall Islands. And they didn't have a good airfield there. So then we sailed from there to the Eniwetok Atoll, which was further north. That was probably the northern part of the Marshall Islands. And we stayed there at an island of Engebi. So we had an airstrip there. We extended the airstrip out into the ocean a little bit so the planes could take off. Otherwise, the airstrip was too small. Every day we went through the radio and the radar of every plane. We had 24 planes in the squadron. So my crew that I had, radio radar crew, and myself, we went through every plane to make sure that that pilot would have communications with all of the other pilots in the squadron, and of course, most important, with the skipper of the squadron, and communications with our ground unit. We had a portable ground unit, and I had an operator in that ground unit that was in communications then with the planes as they were in the air, and with the skipper. So that was my job with my crew that I had, of keeping communications open. And we used to change frequencies every day. Otherwise, the Japanese could tie into what our frequencies were, what we were telecasting at over the air. So we changed frequencies all the time. So in every plane, we used to change the frequency so they couldn't hone in on our frequencies. I'd sit in the plane, and then my other crew members would sit in other planes, and we'd make sure we could communicate with one another. And I usually sat in the lead plane, the skipper's plane. His was the most important. We had to make sure that communication was 100% with the skipper. And then he could communicate with the ground unit, and he could communicate with all of the pilots. They had to be in total communications all the time. And of course, then when they flew, when we were stationed on the island of Engebi, then the squadron would fly to the islands of Ponape and the island of Truk, and they would bomb those islands to neutralize the Japanese planes and their airstrips there. So we neutralized the Japanese planes pretty good there. We lost a couple of pilots, but not bad. I've got to tell you a story about one pilot. He was up in the air and he got on the tail of a Zero and honing on the Zero. So he called back to the base, to our base communication center, and he said, I got a Zero cornered up here. Well, now he's up there 10,000 feet. He's got a plane cornered. We told him, tell us what corner you're at, and we'll come and get you some help. Yeah. But he was a great pilot. He was a great pilot. He got on the tail of the Zero, and with his prop, he chewed off his tail rudder. Lost control, the Zero went down. We were supposed to go into Iwo Jima. We sailed up there, but we couldn't get into the airstrip. The fighting was that fierce. It was terrible. We couldn't get in. So we sat out on the ocean aboard ship for a while, but nothing doing. So we had to go back to the island of Engebi. And then shortly after that, then we went into the invasion of Okinawa. Once the airstrip was secured on Okinawa, then we left Aishima and went to Okinawa. And that's where our squadron was. And we stayed there till the end of the war. Then when they dropped the atomic bombs, after the surrender, then we went into the occupational forces in Japan, in the island of Kyushu and the city of Sasebo. And we took over one of the big Japanese air bases in Sasebo, and we made it our air base, and we brought all of our planes there, and so we stayed there until the war ended, the peace treaty was signed, everything. And
were the Japanese people, how did they react when you guys got there and after the war?
They were very, very good. We met a lot of families when we were, Sasebo was a big city, and probably not too many people knew it, but they were very, very poor. They sacrificed everything for the military, and the civilians in Japan had to sacrifice food, clothing, everything. So the people there were poor. They were destitute. So we tried to help them out, but they were very nice. We had absolutely no problem. We were very careful, though, where we went. We never went alone. We always went 2, 3, or 4 of us, always went together. The people were very good. But I got to tell you a story, talk about the custom of the Japanese. In the city of Sasebo, the farmers didn't have land in the city, so they would go out into the countryside where they had plots of land where they'd raise rice and other food. Well, their custom was the man would be riding on the 2-wheel rickshaw, and the woman would be pulling the rickshaw with the baby strapped on her back, and the man would be sitting in the rickshaw. So we, as Marines and young and foolish at the time, we used to stop them, and we'd make the guy get out there. You pull that rickshaw, and we put the woman on the back, let her ride with a baby strapped on her back. We changed the custom of the Japanese.
Were you proud to have served, to have done your
Oh,
part?
you bet. You bet. I always say I was very proud that I served, and I'd do it again. If I had to, if they called me tomorrow, I'd be right there. But I know they wouldn't want a 94-year-old guy back in the Marines. No way. But yes, I was very proud, and I'm proud today. I'm very proud today. My service with the Marines has been very good. Yes.